Lena wiped her hands on the cloth tucked into her tool belt as she locked up her small HVAC shop for the night. The neon sign outside flickered weakly, buzzing against the Seattle dusk. Her breath rose in the cold air as she looked at the empty street. Thanksgiving was coming, and for the first time, she'd actually arranged her schedule to make it home early. No late repairs, no emergency calls. She had even bought a bottle of wine, picturing her mother's laughter and her sister's chatter echoing through the dining room. But then her phone buzzed, flashing one name she never ignored. Mom. She smiled at first, expecting the usual question. Pumpkin or pecan pie this year? Instead, her mother's tone was soft, uneasy. Lena, honey. I wanted to talk to you about Thanksgiving. Lena's smile faded. Okay. What's wrong? Pause stretched through the line like static. We think it might be best if you sit this one out. Lena froze. What? She said, half laughing. You're kidding, right? Her mother sighed. Sweetheart, Serena's boyfriend is bringing his parents, and we're keeping it formal this year. It's just better this way. Lena gripped the steering wheel tighter as she pulled onto the highway. Formal, she repeated. I am family. Of course, dear, her mother said quickly, her voice dripping with forced calm. But you know how these people can be. It's important for Serena to make a good impression. Lena let out a bitter laugh. So because I fix air conditioners and don't wear a suit, I don't fit in? Silence. Then the faint sound of her mother's sigh. Don't make this about you, Lena. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Got it, Lena said tightly. You don't have to worry. I won't come. She parked the truck in her driveway and sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the bottle of wine she'd left on the passenger seat. Her phone vibrated again, a text from her cousin, Jenny. I need to tell you something. It's about Thanksgiving. Lena hesitated before opening it. The message was short but sharp. Serena told Mom she didn't want you there because she didn't want to look working class in front of Dorian's parents. Lena reread it twice, her throat tightening. The same sister she'd supported through college, paying every bill every semester, was ashamed of her. That Thanksgiving, Lena spent the day alone. The TV murmured in the background while she picked at takeout turkey that tasted like cardboard. Later, curiosity got the better of her. She checked social media. There they were. Smiling faces, a glowing dining table, Serena in a silver dress, Dorian's arm around her. The caption read, Family, Love, and Gratitude. Lena stared at it until her eyes burned. That was the moment something in her snapped. If she wasn't family enough to sit at their table, then her money wasn't family enough to pay for Serena's tuition either. Lena woke up the next morning with the faint light of dawn slipping through her curtains. For a few moments, she just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying her mother's words again and again. It's just one dinner. The phrase gnawed at her like a dull blade. She reached for her phone, ignoring the buzzing notifications, and walked to the kitchen. The smell of coffee filled the air as she opened her laptop. The university's portal blinked to life. $21,500 due in 2 weeks. Her chest felt heavy but steady. With a deep breath, she clicked Remove Payer. A small pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to remove this account? This action cannot be undone. Lena stared at the words as her reflection shimmered faintly on the screen. Yes, she whispered. Her voice was calm, not cold, just finished. One final click and it was done. Years of sacrifices vanished in a heartbeat. She closed the laptop slowly, the soft snap sounding like a door locking behind her. Then came the vibration of her phone. Her mother's name glowing across the screen, relentless as always. She answered, bracing herself. Morning, Mom. Don't morning me, her mother snapped. Did you cancel Serena's tuition payment? Lena leaned against the counter, the mug warm in her hand. I did. There was a gasp on the line. Lena, how could you do that to your sister? She's in tears. Cruel. Lena repeated quietly. Because I stopped paying to be ignored. She's just under pressure, her mother pleaded. You know how she is. I know exactly how she is, Lena said evenly. And I'm done pretending it's fine. The phone calls didn't stop. Her father, her aunt, even her cousin Brent, all lining up to lecture her. Family doesn't turn their back on each other. You're overreacting, Lena. It's just money. You'll earn it back. She sat on the couch, staring at the silent phone. Not one of them had called when she'd been excluded from Thanksgiving. Not one had asked how she felt. They only cared now that the money was gone. She whispered to herself, "Funny how family only remembers you when the bills stop being paid." That evening, Serena's name flashed across the screen. Lena ignored it twice before the voicemail came. "Lena, what did you do? The school emailed me. My payment didn't go through. Please call me back." A second message followed minutes later. "If you don't fix this, I'll be dropped from my classes. You can't just leave me hanging like this." Lena stared at the phone in silence. For years, her sister had treated her like a secret. Now she wanted her to be a savior. Lena typed one line, "You made your choice." Then she deleted it and set the phone face down. By the next afternoon, Serena wasn't just panicking, she was unraveling. She called again, her voice shaking when the voicemail started. "Lena, please. I don't have anyone else to help me. You can't just walk away after everything." Lena listened once, then deleted the message. She wasn't heartless, but she was done being used. For years, her sister had built comfort on her sacrifices. Now, for the first time, Serena was being forced to stand on her own. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument Lena could have had. 2 days later, Dorian found out the truth. It started with an offhand comment during lunch with his parents. "You must be proud of how hard Serena's family worked to put her through law school," his mother said kindly. Dorian frowned. "Her family?" he asked. "I thought she was on a scholarship." Serena froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. The air around them tightened. "Well, my sister helped a little," she murmured. Dorian's eyes narrowed. "A little?" Serena forced a smile. "She just covered a few things." But even she didn't sound convinced. That evening, Dorian confronted her. "So, your sister's been paying for everything?" he asked, standing by the window, arms crossed. Serena hesitated, words fumbling out. "It's not like that. I didn't want you to think I was." "What?" he cut in sharply. "Poor. Dependent. Because that's exactly what you are, Serena." She flinched, her face twisting with embarrassment. "You don't understand. Lena's fine with it. She likes helping." Dorian shook his head slowly. "No, you like taking. And you hid it because you're ashamed of her." Serena's voice broke. "I just didn't want people to judge me." Dorian's tone turned cold. "You judged her first." The words hit her harder than she expected. He grabbed his keys and stepped toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice trembling. "To think," he said flatly. "Because right now, I don't like who you are." The door closed behind him with a quiet finality that made Serena's knees go weak. She sank onto the couch, her mind spinning. For the first time in a long while, she realized that every lie she told had finally circled back to her. Across town, Lena sat at her desk finishing some invoices when her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't even need to look at the name. She knew it was her sister. Instead of answering, she leaned back in her chair and stared out the window. The city lights flickered faintly against the night sky. A small smile touched her lips, sad but peaceful. She wasn't angry anymore, not really. It was free. For years, she'd been trying to buy love and acceptance from people who never saw her worth. Now, she finally understood she didn't have to. The next morning, the storm truly began. Lena arrived at her shop early, the hum of machinery filling the quiet. She was halfway through a work order when her senior technician, Harry, peeked into her office. Boss," he said carefully. "There's someone outside asking for you." Lena frowned, wiping her hands on a rag. "Who is it?" Harry's lips twitched. "Looks like your sister." Before she could respond, the front door slammed open so hard the glass rattled. Serena stood there, eyes red, hair disheveled, her expression wild with fury and desperation. "You ruined my life," Serena shouted, voice cracking through the room. The customers waiting in the lobby froze, their conversations dying mid-sentence. Lena placed the wrench on her desk and straightened slowly. "Good morning to you too," she said evenly. "Don't play games with me," Serena spat. "You cancelled my tuition. Can't enroll. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Lena crossed her arms, her tone calm but sharp. "I stopped paying for someone who treats me like I'm beneath her. That's all." Serena's jaw dropped. "You're my sister." "Exactly," Lena said. "Start acting like it." Serena's voice trembled as she looked around the room, hoping for sympathy. "She abandoned me," she cried, pointing at Lena. "She left me with nothing." No one moved. Harry stepped closer, his voice quiet but firm. "Ma'am, this is a business. You need to leave." Serena turned on him. "You don't understand, she's my family." Harry didn't flinch. "And this is her company. You're disrupting it." The silence that followed was brutal. Serena's eyes darted around, waiting for someone, anyone, to take her side. But all she found were blank stares and quiet judgment. Lena sighed softly and picked up a clipboard from her desk. "You know," she said, her voice low but steady, "you never once said thank you for all those payments." "Not once." Serena blinked, caught off guard. "That's not fair." "It's true," Lena cut in. "Every semester I paid on time. Every book, every fee, every single dollar came from my pocket. And you acted like it was your right." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You erased me to impress strangers, Serena. Now you get to see what life looks like without me." Serena's lower lip trembled. "I didn't mean for things to go this far," she whispered. "I just wanted them to think I came from a good family." Lena tilted her head. "A good family doesn't throw you away for looking different," she said. "A good family doesn't hide the person who held it together." Serena's breath hitched, but Lena didn't let her speak. "You were ashamed of me, Serena. But I'm not ashamed of who I am anymore." Security arrived moments later, quietly escorting Serena out. Her sister's sobs echoed down the hallway long after the door shut. That evening, Lena sat alone in her office after everyone had gone home. The workshop was silent, the smell of metal and oil hanging faintly in the air. She replayed the confrontation in her head, every word, every look. She didn't regret standing her ground, but she felt the weight of finality. Family ties, she thought, shouldn't feel like shackles. For the first time she was learning what peace felt like, quiet, simple, and entirely her own. Outside, the rain began to fall softly against the window, a slow rhythm that matched the calm inside her chest. The next few days were strangely quiet. No phone calls, no guilt-tripping messages, no surprise visits. Lena poured herself into work, expanding her client list, training new hires, and finally approving the new company logo she'd been too busy to finish. She felt lighter, almost reborn. Her mind was clear, her focus sharper than ever. But just as she began to feel settled, her phone buzzed one evening, her mother's name flashing across the screen. She hesitated, debating whether to answer. Then, with a sigh, she pressed accept. "What is it, Mom?" Her mother didn't waste time. "Lena, you need to talk to your sister," she began. "She's falling apart. She moved back home. She hasn't eaten properly in days." Lena leaned back in her chair, her tone steady. "She'll survive." "Don't be cruel," her mother said, her voice breaking. "She's your sister." "So she keeps saying," Lena murmured. "But she wasn't my sister when she uninvited me from Thanksgiving. She wasn't my sister when she pretended I didn't exist." The silence on the other end stretched long and thin before her mother finally whispered, "You've changed." "No," Lena replied. "I've healed." Her mother sighed heavily, the kind of sigh that used to guilt her into submission. "Family forgives, Lena." "Then tell her to start there," Lena replied softly. "Because she's the one who broke it." "You think you're better than us now," her mother said bitterly. No, Lena answered. I just stopped apologizing for who I am. Before her mother could respond, Lena ended the call. She sat in silence, her hands folded on the desk, the city lights flickering outside the window. For the first time, she realized she no longer needed their approval to feel whole. On Sunday morning, Lena drove to the lake just outside the city, a place she hadn't visited since she was a teenager. The air was crisp, the water still. She sat on the hood of her truck, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold and pink. For once, her mind was quiet. No guilt, no tension, no anger, just peace. She thought about everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained. Family, she realized, isn't about shared blood. It's about mutual respect. And for the first time in her life, she was finally learning how to give that to herself. Days turned into weeks, and Lena's shop flourished more than ever. Her team worked hard, clients doubled, and word spread about the honesty and quality of her work. Yet, even as success bloomed around her, there were quiet moments when memories tugged at her heart. She'd see a family laughing together at a cafe or siblings hugging on the street, and for just a second, she'd feel that ache again, the longing for something that had never truly been hers. But she reminded herself, love built on conditions isn't love at all. One cold Friday afternoon, as Lena was closing up the shop, she noticed someone standing across the street. It was Jenny, her cousin, bundled in a thick gray coat, waving timidly. Lena crossed over, brushing her hands on her jacket. Hey, Jen, she greeted softly. Jenny gave a small smile. Hey, Lena. Mind if we talk? They sat on the bench near the corner cafe, the smell of roasted coffee wrapping around them. Jenny hesitated before speaking. I just wanted to say, I think you did the right thing. Lena blinked, surprised. You do? Jenny nodded, her breath visible in the cool air. Everyone's been gossiping, saying you were heartless, but I know better. You gave more than anyone else ever would. Lena stared at the ground, tracing circles with her boot. Still feels cold sometimes, she admitted quietly. Like I've lost something I'll never get back. Jenny placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Maybe you didn't lose anything. Maybe you just stopped carrying what wasn't yours. Lena smiled faintly. The words sank in deep. For once, someone saw her side. Not as the villain, but as the person who finally chose herself. That night, Lena drove home under a sky filled with distant stars. The roads were quiet, empty, peaceful. When she reached her apartment, she made herself tea and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker below. Her thoughts drifted to Serena, not with anger anymore, but a quiet kind of sadness. She wondered if her sister ever understood the cost of what she'd done, how her pride had turned love into distance. Maybe one day, Lena thought, they'd find their way back. But she wouldn't wait for it. Some apologies come too late to heal what's already gone. Meanwhile, across town, Serena sat in her childhood bedroom, staring at her old trophies and school photos. Her life had changed in a matter of weeks. Law school was on hold, Dorian wasn't returning her calls, and the family that once praised her was now struggling to support her. Every time she scrolled through her messages, she saw Lena's name. Blocked, unread, unreachable. Tears welled in her eyes, but pride held them back. She wanted to apologize, to admit she'd been wrong, but she didn't know how to start. For the first time, silence felt like punishment. Christmas came, cold and gray. Lena spent it differently this year. No family gatherings, no guilt, no forced smiles. She invited her employees to a small dinner at her shop instead. They laughed, shared stories, and surprised her with a homemade cake that read, "Best Boss and the Realest Heart." For the first time in years, she felt surrounded by people who valued her not for what she could give, but for who she was. As laughter echoed through the workshop, Lena realized that sometimes family isn't who you're born to, it's who chooses to stand beside you. A few days after New Year's, Lena received a small envelope in the mail. No return address, just her name written in shaky handwriting. She opened it carefully. Inside was a folded note from Serena. The words were short but heavy. "I'm sorry for everything. I thought distance would make me look better, but all it did was show me how empty I am without you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally understand." Lena read it twice, her throat tightening. For the first time, her sister's voice didn't sound entitled. It sounded human. Lena placed the letter on her desk and stared at it for a long while. She didn't rush to respond. Part of her wanted to forgive. Part of her still ached too much to try. Healing, she realized, wasn't about pretending the pain never happened. It was about no longer letting it define her. She folded the note neatly and placed it in her drawer, a quiet symbol of closure. Maybe one day she'd call Serena, maybe not. Either way, she was finally in control of the ending, and that was enough. Spring arrived with sunlight streaming through her office windows. Lena stood near the entrance of her expanding shop, watching her employees load new equipment into the vans. Business was booming, and the sign outside gleamed freshly painted. Callaway Climate Solutions. It was more than a name. It was her legacy, built from long nights, heartbreak, and resilience. She smiled softly, remembering the woman she used to be. The one who begged for a seat at a table that was never meant for her. Now, she had built her own table, and everyone there respected her place at it. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the city, Lena closed the shop and stood outside, breathing in the warm air. The skyline shimmered like gold, and for the first time, she didn't feel small beneath it. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jenny. "Proud of you, Lena. You made it through." Lena smiled, tucking the phone into her pocket. "Yeah," she whispered, looking toward the horizon. "I did." The pain was gone now, replaced by peace. A quiet strength born from every betrayal, every goodbye, every hard-earned lesson. And in that peace she found herself. The following weeks moved softly, like pages turning in a book she no longer feared to read. Lena's days began early and ended late, filled with laughter, hard work, and purpose. Clients trusted her, her team admired her, and even the community began to recognize her name. Sometimes she'd catch herself smiling for no reason at all. Freedom, she realized, wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, and deeply satisfying. She had spent years trying to earn her family's love, only to discover that the real victory was learning to love herself without their approval. One Saturday afternoon, as she organized invoices, the shop door creaked open. Harry stepped inside, followed by a young couple looking nervous. "They're asking about installation," Harry said. Lena greeted them warmly and began explaining the process. Halfway through, she noticed the woman staring at the framed photo on her desk, an old picture of her and Serena as kids, grinning in matching pink shirts. "That your sister?" the woman asked gently. Lena hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah," she said softly. "That's her." The woman smiled. "You two look close." Lena returned the smile, her voice quiet. "We were. Maybe one day again." That night, after closing the shop, Lena sat on her balcony, the city lights glittering below. She held Serena's letter in her hand again, the paper slightly wrinkled from being read too many times. She thought about everything that had happened, the silence, the anger, the long years of giving without being seen. But she also thought about growth, and how pain had shaped her into someone stronger. With a small, bittersweet smile, she whispered into the night, "I forgive you, Serena. Not for you, but for me." Then she folded the letter and tucked it into her journal. Months passed. Serena eventually returned to school, this time on her own. She worked part-time at a legal clinic, slowly rebuilding her life. Sometimes she'd send short emails, never asking for money, just sharing updates. "I passed my exams. Got a part-time offer." Lena never ignored them. She didn't always reply, but she read every word. And even from a distance, there was healing, a quiet acknowledgement that both sisters were learning, in their own ways, to be whole again. The hurt was still there, faint but fading, replaced by something gentler, understanding. On a warm summer evening, Lena locked up the shop and stood beneath the golden sky, her reflection glowing faintly in the glass window that bore her company's name. The world felt wider now, brighter. She had lost family dinners, polite smiles, and empty approval, but gained peace, purpose, and self-respect. The air smelled of freedom, of new beginnings. As she climbed into her truck, she whispered to herself, "I'm enough, just as I am." And with that, she drove off toward the setting sun, the horizon wide open before her. The perfect ending to a story that began with rejection but ended with rebirth.